If it's already not clear, I really like Resident Evil 9. It's one of my personal favorites in the series. No, I will say I like Resident Evil 5, but that's for another video. Resident Evil 9 is amazing as a game in plenty of ways, but there's one issue that I don't see anybody pointing out, and it's one that kills me especially. If you do not know, I'm a big nerd for environmental storytelling, and I have videos that explain it. I did Resident Evil 9 before it came out. However, what I really wanted to talk about today was one of the aspects of it, which is it gives you a sense of time, and especially when it's properly used. Ironically, one of my favorite sections of the game is also my most hated, being the hospital or the asylum. Let me get something clear. Any critiques I'm about to make here are basically solely out of my love for the game, because this area, as great as it is, there's something to it that just really throws me off. So this actually officially occurred to me when I realized the timeline events between Leon and Grace Ashcroft, because there is some really fascinating parts. So when Grace wakes up, she wakes up and finds that the nurse's station is been slaughtered with all infected people. However, nothing on the intercom has been said. Now when she gets to the gate, that's when the intercom says a code 6, and essentially all shit goes loose. However, what's really fascinating about this is that events were happening before Grace, and probably around the time that Leon entered the hospital, stuff was already happening. Except the deal is, we don't get to see or experience any of it. For example, Code 6 gets called for when Leon enters the main doctor room, and nothing is really built off of it anymore. Nothing else is said on the intercom throughout the entire game besides little beeps that let you know that phases are happening. This is really rough for getting a timeline of events, because it essentially means that all the events that happened, all the unique infected and stuff, happened within minutes. Everybody in the hospital infected. And before you say, what do you mean everybody in the hospital? There is not a single human dead body except for 2. And I mean 2. The nurse that guides Leon has a very interesting detail that I think if we get a DLC that talks about the background of the hospital, more on that later, the nurse says she's relatively new. And what's weird is she is one of the 2 people that we see die as a human. Every other person we run into is infected, so this gives me a couple different ideas. It seems like everybody got infected around the same time, I'm guessing from a chip or something that everybody had surgically implanted. But there's something weird about this. Throughout the game, there's plenty of cases or incidents where there's notes left by survivors. For example, there's this one doctor code that has this one guy saying we need to find the leaders of the hospital, get the corpse, and get the fuck out. Except there's no dead body near this note. The note indicates that he is hearing his coworkers kill each other, except there's nothing actually visually there for us to see this. The Cook is a very interesting example. He's one of the most interesting enemies in the game, and you get a general idea that he's not the nicest dude. Except what's interesting that indicates that everything happened within a short minute was, well, the food. The food all around the kitchen is prepared elegantly. It all looks perfectly put together, and the point that none of these have been thrashed around, destroyed, indicates that whatever happened here happened within a couple seconds. And there's plenty of other things that indicate this as well, but the problem is I would have liked to see this hospital operating normally. I know it sounds strange, but Victor Gideon actually has some really interesting theories and ideas, and it seemed like he had a lot of respect from his peers, so it would have been really fascinating to see the hospital before these events of the infected. Now yes, I imagine we will probably get a DLC, and I will gladly play it, but we shouldn't need a DLC to really see or indicate what this place was like beforehand. For example, one little joke thing I did in my last video was that I noticed that there was an OCP winter top in the basement. This is a really strange detail, and if we go Chekhov's gun, everything has a purpose of being there. Why was there an army top here? Were there veterans suffering PTSD? You know, that would have been really cool to look into, except there's nothing about it. I guess the point of this section is just simply to say that the hospital is such a great setting, it's super enjoyable to play, except I want to know what the general norm is, so that way I can say what is really fucked up. I think there should be more information on the leaders of the hospital, whether they were fanatical or they were actually really good scientists. There should be more involved with this. But you know what wasn't involved? Oh boy, and this is in the first playthrough where I thought this was going to be a big point. When Grace and Emily escape from the hospital, they run into a helicopter pilot. Now this helicopter pilot has a really cool character design, has this kind of vintage but roguelike style. You'd see him definitely in a jazz bar somewhere. Essentially, the pilot is not infected, and he's offering to help us out by flying us out here if we get the keys. Now, off his character design, there's a lot of interesting to point out, except the game points out one thing very fascinating. He has a limp, and he describes that the limp is from some past trauma or past war, and you know what? You get to learn nothing about it. He dies literally 5 seconds later. I wish I was joking. It's really weird to put this much detail in a character and just kill him off in 5 seconds. I understand that there is room for DLC and maybe we'll learn more about him. But again, as I said earlier, we do not need to rely on DLC for Chekhov's gun to apply. These were my two main gripes with the game. I do want to do a separate video talking about the antagonists of this game because as much as I love the personalities of the antagonists, this game's antagonist fights are not great, and the kind of dilemma of the antagonist is terrible. If you guys want to see that, please comment, and I will gladly make a video on that. To bring it all back home, environmental storytelling has to give us a decent timeline of events. In this game, it's all over the place, with a dead nurse's station, perfectly prepared food, and essentially really weird locations of dead bodies, including really weird notes. It's all over the place, and as much as I love the hospital section, my analytical side of my brain just does not like it. Well, I'll see you later, guys. I know this was more of a rant than usual, but it's something that's been on my mind for a long time, and again, it's something so minor that I think a normal player is not going to see, but for me that loves to analyze a story, and again, environmental storytelling, it gets on my nerves so bad. Well, you guys have a good rest of the night. Peace.